Hey, welcome back everybody. Obsidian Drakes here. So I'm going to go ahead and go over my game 3 from the RTT from last month. So I know it's been a couple weeks. I have game 1 and game 2 already up, so I figured we'll go ahead and go over game 3. It's be a little bit of a shorter video, but I'll go ahead and hop right on in. Alright, so the lists, so from my previous videos you could see the other lists. But just a quick go over it again in case you haven't seen those other videos. I took Blood Angels Gladius to the RTT, and in the RTT I ended up going 3-0. And this is the final game from that RTT. So first one, I have that Apothecary Biologus, and he's taking the Fire Discipline. He's going to attach to a 6-man aggressor squad to really just put out a lot of DACA and able to take down some pretty awesome targets, or some pretty tough targets. And then I got my Chaplain on Jump Pack. He has Artificer Armor. I had an extra 10 points, so why not make him a little harder to kill. And then Ballistic Dread, 2 Death Company squads, Infernal Pistols, and Power Fists. Scepter Squad, 2 Scouts, a couple Repulsors, Librarian Dreadnought, and then some Inquisitorial Henchmen, a couple other ones, Vanguard Vets and stuff from my previous games. They were really clutch, and so yeah, that's the list in a nutshell. Don't want to spend too much time on it. And then Death Guard list. So in my third game, as you can tell by the thumbnail, it was Mortarion on there, so I played against Death Guard. It was a really difficult Death Guard list. They had a Lord of Virulence. He went with the Death Shroud Hermes, Mortarion, the Defilers. The Defiler cannons are something to be feared. They did a lot of damage. Were able to take out a repulsor of mine, so they were doing they did a lot of work. And then the Death Shroud Terminators, the Bloat Drones, and the Crawlers. So there was 2 fetid bloat drones, and man, those fetid bloat drones are really they're a pain. They're really fast, and you got to dedicate a pretty decent amount to kill them. And then the Plague Burst Crawlers, I left it on there. They had the Plague Spurters, so that kind of came into play because he was really kind of going against infantry, and he didn't have those tank shots. But the Defilers kind of, I think, filled that role for his list. And then the allied units, he had Nurglings, and then 3 War Dog brigands. Those things, I always find it difficult to deal with knights. I think I don't bring enough anti-tank, which I think is going to be a thing that I go ahead and change going forward into the future, some of my lists. So those are the lists. Alright, so the mission that we played Mission N, so that's Priority Targets, Chosen Battlefield, and Dawn of War. I was the defender, so I put my first piece of terrain. This was player place terrain, so I put that first piece of terrain down, and then I went ahead and put my first unit down, and then he went first. So this is just a little bit of the deployment. So in the back I have my 2 repulsors right there, and then my ballistic dreadnought. So that's basically all my anti-tank in this list. I put it all on this one side just for the way that everything was kind of looking out. There wasn't very many firing lanes. So the firing lanes that you can kind of see between these 2 buildings and this objective, I wanted to be able to kind of maybe pop out there and shoot things as best I could. And that's another thing that I noticed is I don't have a whole bunch of pictures from this game. It was the 3rd game of the day. I was pretty tired, and learning experience for me is, I need to be probably taking pictures and the movement phases, and also maybe the fight phases, and then end a turn, just to kind of help give that overall picture of what happened in the game. So that's just a little bit of my deployment in him. So turn 1. So again, some of the pictures in the background are more of the deployment, so you can kind of see like where my repulsors and stuff are. This is that side view. Got my Librarian Dreadnought there, and then some of my infantry were on this circle over there. So turn 1, he pulled Assassination and Behind Enemy Lines, and so he got goose eggs on those, so he wasn't able to get those turn 1. And then for me, I was able to get Cleanse for 3 and then bring it down for 4. So I killed the bloat drone that he had thrown onto an objective, and then I was able to cleanse with my scouts. So I did have 2 pairs of scouts. You can see them on the top of the building. I had declared my intent that they were on the bottom, and then also the building and the the middle building in the far end by my dice tray. I also had some scouts in there as well. So I believe I was able to cleanse there, and then he actually came and I think took that middle objective off me by towing on it with a couple things. And so that was turn one. It's pretty cut and dry. He took a long time on this turn, moving and making sure everything was right. Turn two. So he was able to get 10 primary, so he was able to move on to that middle objective, and then he was also able to hold on to one of the side object or his home objective. So he was on the middle, and then he was on his home objective. His secondaries were storm, hostile, objective, which he was able to get 5 out of 5 points. So he came up and he slaughtered some of my scouts in this building to the left near that central. You can see the snow. That's an objective. My little neoprene. Over there in that by that building on the top left of the picture. He came in there and he slaughtered my scouts, and so he took that and then extended battle lines. He held his own, and then he went into no man's land. And so it was pretty much his turn. He kind of just slowly crept up with his plague burst crawlers, Morty, and everything. So he ended up having a vast amount of stuff in the middle of the board, and so he had Morty, 2 plague burst crawlers. He had one of the war brigands go that way, so I knew, I was like, okay, well, this is basically where all of his army is. So I really tried to play to the left objective and then the right objective and just hold my middle as well. So that did kind of that plan materialized as the game kind of went on. And so for my turn 2, I was able to get 10 primary points because I had my home objective, and then I was able to steal the objective that's not on the screen to the right of this picture, where he had a fetid blow drone that I blew up. I was able to go ahead and I believe I teleported something over there, or was able to kind of run over there and grab it real quick, or either that or I might have held on to the scouts. It's been a little bit since this game went on. But I got 10 primary points, and then tempting target, I got 0. I believe I binned this one at the end of the turn. Of course, I think he picked the middle. It was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to dedicate all my army for you to kind of come in and get, and or dedicate all my army to go and take it back, and then he's just going to plow into me and destroy me. So I decided not to, just it's probably worth not 5 points to lose most of my army. And then overwhelming force. So yeah, I was able to kind of take something back and got 5 points from that. And then turn 3, so he was able to get 10 points again. He held the middle, and he held I believe he held the middle, and then he held the side as well. Or actually, I took the middle back, and then he held his home objective, and then he held the one to the right, where the war brigand is down there. So he got 10 points, and then he secured no man's land, and he was able to investigate signals. So on this turn, he brought in his death shroud, his nurglings in the corners, and then one of his fetid blow drones was able to kind of run over there and go ahead and do it for him. And then for me, the drakes, I got 10. I had my home, and then I had the left objective. You can see my in the top left of the screen that I was able to take back that objective. And then also with my secondaries, I was able to get investigate signals for 4, and then extend battle lines for 5. So his fetid blow drone had come up and destroyed my Vanguard veterans, but I was able to, I pulled outside of combat and he didn't consolidate into me, so I was able to run over there and scan, and then I brought in my inquisitorial henchmen to do it in the left corner. And then extended battle lines, I was able to get out there, held my objective, and then went out and got another one. And then finally, so unfortunately, that was the end of the game. So what the TO had us do is he made us score. There was essentially the conditions were scoring at the end of the game. And so he scored 5 because he had the middle, but at the end of my turn, I got 15 because of my Inceptors. My Inceptors, I came down onto his home objective. He had moved that war bringing off, so I came down there, I stole that, and then he had done the same thing in the middle objective up top. He left that, and then I came down and I stole that from him. So that was the final, essentially the final score of the games was 66 to 61 in my favor. So I won by 5 points, which was it was a difficult game, and with all that armor, it was really hard to punch through. So the conclusions from this game. So it's kind of a quicker video. I unfortunately didn't take as much pictures, so I learned from that. I'm going to go ahead and make sure to make more, take more pictures. But I guess really what I came to is, should chess clocks be mandatory in tournaments? So I had put out a chess clock. I said I wanted to play on a chess clock because we were on the top table. So we were playing on it, and unfortunately, by the time we got done, I had 30 minutes on my timer still, and he had went over about 10 minutes. And so I kind of was like, hey, like you have had an extra 10 minutes, man. So I'm gonna have to I don't want to call the clock, but I think it's like at this point, like I want to be able to kind of finish out my gameplay at this point because he had been taking very long turns. And really kind of not necessarily take backs, but he's been like he'll move something, move it back, kind of. And I think that he really was unsure of some of this stuff, so it took up so much time. So at the end of it, he was the TO kind of was like, hey, well, okay, well, we're out of time, and so he wanted to just talk it out. And at this point, he had over, he had essentially 40 more minutes of gameplay, right? I had 30 minutes on my clock and so he had about, 40 minutes of extra gameplay that I had not had. And so he just wanted to talk about, and he had told me that his other opponents had been able to talk it out with him, and each time it had been in his favor. So I don't know. I guess this is. I think he might have been a newer player. I think that maybe this was one of his first tournaments. He plays on. I think he was saying he played it online, and he kind of came in. So it just made me think that is there? I guess it's just more of a question to pose. Is there a talking it out problem in 40K? And does this skew tournament data, right? I know it's just an RTT, but I'm wondering how much, is this a problem, or have you guys experienced this going to tournaments where people they take up a lot of time, and then at the end of the game, they kind of just talk it out, and it's like, well, they talk it out, and it's like, hey, everything seems to kind of go their way, So I just think that was kind of a question that it kind of posed to me of like, do we need to have more tournaments have chess clocks, not just on the top 5 or 10 tables. A lot of tournaments, I would say probably the majority of GTs have it that way, but do maybe most of the tables need, or if not all of them, have a chess clock, just so that everybody gets a fair amount of time to play? Because I guess that's kind of in my perspective, it was like, oh man, like it felt unfair that he had almost 40 extra minutes to play his game, and if I had had my time to even talk it out even more, I would have scored 80 something points or something along those lines. I think I calculated it, and that actually would have made me win this RTT. So I would have gotten first place instead of second place. So I went undefeated. Thank God for those Inceptors, but yeah, and I guess another thing that I found out from this game is, Death Guard vehicles. I guess vehicles they're super tanky, but I think vehicles in general, I think people are finding with that increased toughness is just they're difficult to deal with, and so las cannons, like I think that's something that when I think about what would my next iteration of my list be, I think that I'm just looking for other anti-tank, definitely probably putting some eradicators in there. I know I've mentioned gladiator lancers. I don't own any, but I was thinking about maybe buying some and putting them in my list just to, I'm almost contemplating, do you go 1,000 points into tanks, vehicles, and anti-tank kind of stuff, so you have a half of your army is tanky and can punch into that stuff, and then the other 1,000 points is your scoring units, and then like your infantry, they can maybe punch into elite infantry or chew up some of those hordes or whatever, anti-horde or whatever it may be. So yeah, those are essentially my conclusions from this final game. I know I didn't have a lot of pictures and unfortunately didn't show how much of the game kind of progressed, but I think that was the big one that kind of came to my mind of like, huh, like I could have won the tournament, it would have been awesome, but you know, I mean, you win some, you lose some. I mean, in 5 years from now, is it going to matter? No. So, but it was just really kind of posing a question of like, huh, like, because I've had that happen to me a couple times where I felt that my opponent was, you know, taking a long time, and then, you know, we only get to play 3 rounds, and you know, I mean, not talking out, you know, round 4 and 5. I mean, so much can happen in 2 rounds of the game to where it's so many different variables where I think it's once you get past that point, it's too much. And I was glad that the TO kind of came in and was like, hey, like just use the round that you both finally fully had it, or had a full turn, and then that was, you know, that was turn 3, and then he had us do that end game primary scoring, which, you know, actually put me out in the front. But if we hadn't done that, then, you know, this would have been a loss. And it would have been big thing of I didn't get to really play out my turns. So I don't know, just something to think about. I thought it was, you know, kind of food for thought and interesting. So if you guys can go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments, and I know people always say if you guys can like, comment, or subscribe, and you know, constructive criticism. I know this. I didn't have very many pictures and other things like that, but anything that you guys think that would be a way to improve the videos, I greatly appreciate it. But thanks for if you did stick out through the whole video, I appreciate it. And take care. Happy wargaming.